Hi everybody, it's Amy at Crafty Cat, and we are going to continue to work on this. So the file folder is all done and we have the tag in here. I did add to the little tab at the top just some fabric washi and some rickrack across there. So that's what's up at the top tab. So this goes back in the pocket on the front that we made with the pattern envelope. So I decided to do a journal for the inside, and I'm going to do a simple journal because I don't want it to be too fat because it won't fit into the file folder correctly. So I am using another piece of file folder, and I need my ruler. This piece is, I cut it, it's just about 5 3/4 by almost 8 1/2. It's an odd size because I wanted to put this other pattern pouch, packet, whatever, over the top as our cover. So I cut it to fit the pattern. So it's totally going to depend on the pattern that you use if you're going to do something like this. It doesn't really matter what size the journal is as long as you can put it in and out of, you know, your file folder. You don't want to make it too big that it won't slide in and out. So really that's all that matters. But if you're going to do the sewing pattern pouch, then it needs to be about that size. And all these are different depending on if they're simplicity or buttrick or whatever. So that's kind of how that works. I just inked the whole thing. And then I'm going to take, this piece came out of this pattern. So I want to put it on here, you know, basically this sort of thing, and I'll cut it down afterwards so that it fits right. I just want to make sure I have plenty, you know, to cover the file folder completely. The other thing is, once we put this on, we may be cutting this down just a tiny bit because these corners aren't great, and so I just want to make sure it's, you know, we don't have a lot of the file folder showing. Okay, so I folded this right here because that's where I want it to hit in the crease. I wanted the pictures of the ladies is what I was really going for there. So that's what our goal is. So I think I'm just going to put glue on one side of this, get that one glued down, and then put glue on the other side. So I hope you guys are having an awesome day. And hello and welcome to all my new subscribers. I've gotten quite a few, and we have quite a few people who are new to junk journaling, so that's awesome. Glad to have you guys. It's a great community. So I will be talking about some things that some people may already know today if you've been junk journaling for a while or whatever. So sorry if it's a repeat. I just want to make sure some of the newer people that have come, you know, are getting the information they need as well. I just sliced a giant piece of glue off of my glue stick. I am using glue stick for this because I will be doing some stitching, so I'm not that worried about, I don't want it to fold right there, I want it to fold right here. I think, wasn't it? No, because that's not wide enough. Where was my fold? It's right here. See, that's the tricky part, so you don't want to mess that up because these fold all over the place because they were instructions in the booklet. So I'm just lining up my seam essentially, and I know I have some overlap here, and that's okay. So I'm just going to take my bone folder and kind of smooth that to the edge. You just want to make sure you get them, you know, covered really well. And like I said, I will be stitching around that outside edge, so if every little section, you know, edge isn't totally glued, it'll be all right. But if you don't want to stitch, then make sure that you get really good coverage, and you may even want to use like a wet glue at the edges, just so that, you know, your edges are staying glued down really well. So yeah, we're having really, really nice weather. I feel horrible for the people in California. Now they're having the earthquakes, and I know those can be frightening. I've always lived in earthquake country, so I know that that's not super fun when it happens. but I do find them less terrifying than I can imagine like a tornado or hurricane to be. Never lived around those, so I think it's just all what you're used to, but earthquakes can be scary, especially on the magnitude that they're having in California right now. Where I grew up, we just used to have little bitty ones, and you'd feel them, but they didn't last very long, and they sometimes would like rattle some stuff on shelves, but that was about it. Okay, so I'm just gonna do this. But they're so bad this time that, you know, people's houses are catching on fire and stuff. Ugh. Scary. And then when the roads all crinkle and crack, and it's kind of crazy. So my thoughts and prayers go out to those people. Stay safe. My kids, when they were little, learned about earthquakes at school. And so for a while they were a little bit worried about it. And I said, well, the good part about living where we live is if necessary, we can just like go out into a field. And, you know, you don't have to worry about things falling on your head that way. But I know a lot of places that's not really an option. This is always the tricky part with gluing, especially this really old paper, because it wants to buckle. So you just want to keep messing with it until you get it, you know, as smooth as you want it. And that right there just probably isn't ever going to be super smooth, unfortunately. Kind of press it into the crack there. Okay, so now I can trim around the outside. And I know this is probably not super exciting, but I just want to make sure I go through the whole thing with everybody so that, you know, if you want to do something like this, you know what to do. And I learned a lot from Nik the Booksmith and Gail Agostinelli. They do some great videos on sewing in signatures and things like that. So if you know, want to watch that, it would probably be a good idea. Because they're definitely the pros. Oopsie. If you don't already watch them. I mean, I think most people that do this stuff have watched them. Alright, so there's the inside part. Throw away these littler scraps. And okay, now this is the part I'm a little bit worried about because I want this to go on nice and flat. But it is kind of janky in some spots. So I think I'm going to do the same thing, kind of just line it up at the fold where it naturally folds, the pattern. And then get the top. If I get my head in there, I apologize. So see, these edges are not going to be completely covered because it's been cut right there and stuff. So we may do some trimming or, you know, figure out something else to kind of put there. Alright, so let me get this paper again. And I'll try not to slice my glue this time. Hopefully. Really want to be careful here. I'm going to come along this edge a lot so that it'll glue down really well. And these edges, and like I said, I am going to stitch it, but I just really want, oops, it's scooted down, so see, now I'm going to have to line it up again. I should probably turn it around since the top edge is complete. That's what I'm going to do. Turning this around, and it's stuck now to that. Because there was glue in there from last time. Okay, let me try this again. So I'm just lining up here again. And I'm going to try to make sure these edges stay down when I flip it over, hopefully. These ones were pretty fragile because they're from the 50s, so. Sorry, everybody's home today, so if you hear computers and movies and all that, that's why. I'm just going to try to get this as smooth as possible. You guys can see what I'm doing. And you know, it's not going to be perfect because this old package is not perfect. So see, it's cracked here, but I don't mind those little bits showing, and that is why I will probably trim along there. But that's why I inked my file folder, so that anything that was sticking out in the end, hopefully it will look okay. Just put those down real good so they don't go anywhere. Okay, I'll do the back. I've like glued the whole thing together now. Let's see. Okay. Alright, if I can get a hold of this, because this feels glued down too from when I put the glue on the other side. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to glue really well right up along all these edges here. This is where I go through the most glue, is this type of stuff. When I glued the pages together in my last altered book, I used a whole one of those, just gluing the pages together. Which I guess really isn't a ton, but just try to get it nice and smooth. And you know, these are not like perfectly square or anything either, even if you find one that is in better condition maybe than this one. They just are not perfectly square. Okay, so I think that's going to be good if I can get it apart again. Okay, so now I'm going to do a little trimming with my trimmer. If I can find it. I have to set stuff on the floor because I don't have enough on my desk. I put a new cutting blade in here today, and it doesn't want to stay very well. Okay, there we go. I'm not really worried about size. I just want to get nice, you know, edges on that. So I think I'm just going to take a tiny bit off of, and I'm folding it back in half because I really want them to, you know, meet each other and stuff. I don't want to end up with a weird. Let's do just a tiny bit more. Okay. And so instead of like coming up to the edge and hitting the edge of that, I lift it up and put it a little further into the pattern and then push down to get it started, because sometimes when you hit those edges it crinkles the paper and I don't want that. And then you can come back through and hit that. See, so I just cut off that much and that's it. But I have a nice straight clean edge now. I'm going to do the same on the bottom here. And I have already cut my papers, but we may have to cut them down a little bit to go inside. I cut some of that off, but that's okay. Alright, and I think the top's good. I mean, it's kind of roughly, but I don't think that's a big deal. I just didn't want to see a whole bunch of the file folder underneath. So I'm going to ink this a little. And I did make some pockets to go on the inside out of fabric. So. And I know this isn't super, you know, like dimensional and stuff on the front, but when you're slipping it in and out of that file folder, you probably don't want something that has a lot of dimension because it just is going to get caught up and messed up. So I like this because you can see the whole, you know, this whole back side and everything of the pattern, which is kind of fun. Okay, that's done. And then I'll show you my signature. So this is called a signature. I had some questions on that. When you put a grouping of papers together, it's called a signature, and it's the same thing in like regular modern books. Now let me grab. You can sometimes see, if you pull this back, I know this is going to be hard to see, but there's little like sections or little groupings of paper, and it's the same thing. They just glue these in instead of sewing them in. They used to sew them in, but now they get glued in. So that's what we do as junk journalists. We sew them in because obviously we don't have the machinery to do the whole gluing in process. So this is just going to have one signature, so this is one only. I have to see if these are going to even fit now because I cut it down. I'm probably going to have to do a little bit of trimming on the edges, but I want to show you what I did. So this is a piece of the pattern paper instruction, and I just took, these are die cuts that I have. They're just like little frame things. And I didn't cut out the middle of the frame portion, I just used the whole thing. And then I have a stamp that has the stitching pattern on it to go around these, and this is just washi tape, just so you have some journaling space on these that I put in, because this is a fun picture, I don't want to lose that, but some of the instructions aren't a big deal. And then there's old coffee paper, this is a piece of ledger, these are from my friend Michelle, they're very well coffee dyed for sure, thanks Shell. And then I used some of this old, these are from 1948, they're pages out of a Family Circle magazine, and because they're really brittle when you fold them in half, I took a strip of the actual, you know, part that I trimmed off the top and stuff, and I glued it right here. But you can also use washi tape, you don't have to use the piece of the paper. It's just, I liked it because it's the same paper with the same patina and all that. And then there were some tears on this page, so I actually put the March 1948 right there that I cut off, just as like patches, just so they don't rip further. And sometimes you have to kind of do that to this old paper because otherwise it'll just, I mean, you know how it is, it just falls apart. So I cut those, so let me tell you what size those are, and we're gonna have to cut them down a little bit more, but essentially this particular one is, it's almost like 5.5, so really that would be the 11 sheet of paper just folded in half, and then it's like 8 1/8. So I just cut a little bit off the top of a regular standard sheet of copy paper, and then I folded it in half. And then this is the ledger, that little piece of ledger folded in half, and then the magazine page I did trim down a bit so that it would fit. And that's all you really do. And these I had a question about too, and I answered her, but just so everybody knows, these are out of composition notebooks when I have the lines going the right direction instead of, sometimes you see in journals people fold them and the lines are going up and down. If you cut all the strings in a composition notebook, the pages just lift right out, and then you can have whole sheets. And then I coffee stain them, and this one I just had to cut down to the size that I needed. And this is a piece of, I think this was Kool-Aid dye paper, and then that's out of an old magazine. And again, I put, it's instructions for making a purse, and I put some washi on there and added another one of those, you know, so you can journal. And then this is just some lined paper. This is a vintage bag, so I've just folded it in half and it just goes right in. So when you make a signature, you're just essentially grouping pages, different pages together, and you can use whatever you want. If you don't have the old magazines and stuff, don't worry about it. Just use, you know, copy paper, lined paper that's been coffee dyed. This is like little kid writing paper. There's another one of those, and I glued in another piece of this. That's the strip that I cut off the top. I just glued it right in there so that it stabilizes it, so hopefully it won't rip. Coffee dyed paper, and then in this piece of coffee dyed paper, after I sew the signature in, I'm gonna put a line of glue here and a line of glue here, and I'll have a big pocket because I'm gonna do a large journaling tag right there. So that's my one signature, and you can see they're all just folded papers, and those will get sewn into this, but I'm gonna have to trim them down a little bit. So I think I'm gonna go stitch around this. Like I said, I'll trim these papers down, and when I come back, I'll put the pockets in. I made pockets like this to go on the inside right here, and I have done this technique where I just take a glue stick, glue little pieces of fabric, scraps of fabric down, and then I just kind of stitch everywhere. I just do straight stitches all over, and you can see on the back it's just all kinds of stitches all over to kind of look like a patchwork quilt type thing. So I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, hi everybody, I'm back. So I stitched around this, as you can see right here. All right, and then I've gotten my pages together, and what you want to do is just go through and get your pages how you want them. Like, you know, I want this one here, so I want to keep it there, and I'm going to kind of have to hang on to it when I poke holes because these clamps aren't big enough to hold it, but I clamp just to hold the rest of my papers as best as possible, so you can see. And I've poked holes through this one. I have a center hole, so you find the middle point, mark it, and poke the hole. This one I came a little bit further down because I wanted to get this in there, and a little bit further up. I usually go 1 inch, but these are more like 1.5 inches, and I poked holes. So what I have to do is poke the holes in this as well. So, and that outside paper keeps moving on me, so let me make sure I've got these lined up where I want them. Okay, so I've got that one. And I'm just going to come and line these papers up. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find the middle point on that. Sorry. I just don't want it to be off because it'll make the whole thing off. So find your middle point. So we have 8 1/4, so we need 4 1/8 is where our middle point is going to be. And I'm just going to make a tiny little mark, which you won't even see once it's all sewn. Maybe I'm going to make a mark. Okay, and then the other ones I will be able to line up just because that one's lined up. So I'm just going to take it, and like I said, if you watch Gal and Nik the Booksmith, they're a lot better at this than I am. And I poke the hole right through there, see? And then my next hole. And you can keep doing it right into the book, but I find that sometimes they get a little bit off, so if you can pinch, that helps a little bit. Okay, so that one came out right there. So I'm going to start sewing my thread through the middle from the inside. And what this will do, it'll put my signature strings, you know, the tied in part, on the inside. You can also start at the outside, and then your strings will be hanging out the outside so you can bead on them or do things like that. So I'm going to start here. I go up to the top. Everybody does it a little bit different, and it doesn't really matter as long as, you know, you're getting it. This is the 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So I'm just going back in, and this is always the tricky part, is getting, I'm actually just going to do, this is why I don't like doing this, because it's very tricky and it's very hard to do on camera and not mess it up. So I apologize for it not being perfect here. Can't get my holes lined up. Alright, so I got it. See? And I don't, sometimes it goes so smoothly and I have no troubles at all. Other times I just feel like a mess, which right now I kind of feel like a mess. So now I'm coming back out, and I'm going to go back out through the outside and come back in through the middle. See, there comes my needle back through the middle. So I want I want this string that I started with that's hanging in here on this side of this string that goes down the middle, and then this one's going to be on the other side. So you're going to have a string on each side. Can you see that that's the middle? There's a string on this side and a string on that side of that middle string. Okay? So I'm going to take these off now so that we can get them nice and tight in here. And you don't want to do them too tight because you don't want to rip your paper. That would not be fun. But you know, you want it pretty snug because otherwise your signature is going to be loose. And then do another knot. And I cut the length of this. This is not just regular sewing thread. This is for upholstery. So it's thicker and it's tough. It doesn't snap super easy, and this is the one that I use. It's polyester, 200 yards, whatever. It's just a thicker thread, so it's not snap like regular thread does. And I do like 3 or 4 knots just to make sure that it's nice and snug in there, because I don't want it, you know, going anywhere. Oh, and I was going to tell you, the length is like 3 times the length of the journal. So like 1, 2, 3, you know, at least. Just to make sure you have plenty, because you don't want to just cut off a short piece and then you don't have enough. And I know that seems wasteful, but it's just nice to know you have plenty. Cut that one a little bit shorter. Sorry, my husband and son are doing something to a computer downstairs, so dusting it or something. So those will hang there, and you can put little decorations on the end of these if you want to. For right now I'm just going to leave them like that. But see, so that's your little journal, and it's just made out of a file folder and some papers. So yeah, there's that. And then I'm going to put these pockets here. I made these this morning, and like I said, I just took pieces of fabric and glued those on there. And so I've got glue, and I didn't stitch them on because I thought it might be too thick with everything going on. So I stitched around them, so I'm just going to put glue directly on my stitches on 3 sides so that I have a nice pocket. And this is a fairly simple journal, obviously. It's only 1 signature. You know, lots of people do like 3, 4, I've even seen like 5 signatures. The really fatty ones. My friend Allie, the Cockney Crafter, she does some little fatty ones, and they're really cool because they're nice and fat and lots of signatures. I definitely would not tackle that on camera because sewing in signatures makes me a little crazy, as you probably noticed. Oops, I got it way crooked. This, it might be too long. We might have to trim it a bit. Thought I had it measured right, but I'm just doing great today. I'm just going to tuck that fabric. I think it's the fabric that's getting caught up in there. Okay, so those are on, or that one's on. And you can see the fabric out the bottom, but I'm fine with that. Because that's why I kind of left it, you know, frayed all around the edge. So this one's going to go right here. Make sure I have it the right direction. It doesn't really matter, it's not like a directional thing, but lots of glue because stuff will be going in and out of those. So I hope this helped you guys. I hope you're not like more discouraged. It is a little tricky to sew in signatures. I'm gonna tell you, it's, like I said, not my favorite thing to do out of making journals, but you know, with a little practice, and like I said, if all else fails, you can snip the threads and try it again. It's not really that big of a deal. It just can be a little bit nerve-wracking. But like I said, if you watch somebody like Nik the Booksmith or Gail Augustinelli do it, they're a lot more proficient at it than I am. Okay. I don't know how I got my pockets a little bit long, but I can trim them if I need to. Let's see, is that gonna be right? Yeah. Alright, so those are hanging out, and then like I said, now that this is sewn in, I'm going to glue. That's why I'm not going to decorate these. I knew there was a reason. I'm like, why wasn't I going to decorate those? Because they're just going to be hidden. You're not going to see those strings when I glue this to make this pocket here. So I'll glue this, and then I will let you guys go so that you don't, you know, have to be watching this all day. And I'm just going to try to meet those the best I can. It's sort of like when you're doing the altered book pages. You just want to try to get them as even as possible, obviously. And get all that glue off of there. So now I'll have a pocket here, and I don't know exactly yet what I want to do with that. We'll keep working on that. But I do have the some book page that I glued 2 pieces of book page together so that I can put them in here. And I'm probably going to have to take a little off because I did that before I cut the pages down. So let me just trim a little off the bottom of this so it'll slide in and out nicely. And I did do some more fabric. Oh, that's what I was going to talk to you guys about. To go along the edge of this, I made another one of these. And then I was going to show you the ones that I put on my shop. So there's this one. My daughter and I made these. She made this one. And it's more of a like shabby chic, shabby vintage, whatever. It's just you know, all different pieces of kind of rose fabrics. There's even some of that rose trim in there, lace, you know, some of this fuzzy trim. So that's the shabby vintage, I called that one on my Etsy shop. And it's a whole yard, so you get a whole yard and you can snip it. But what I would say is wherever you snip it, make sure you put some glue. You'll probably be gluing it onto a page, so that part will be fine, but you don't want the whole thing to come unraveled on you because it's just stitched, so you want to make sure you put some glue on it. And then this one has a kind of farm theme. There's cows and pigs, and some red fabric and some eyelet lace. Just all different fabrics, some denim. And so there's a whole yard of that as well that you can order if you want to put like at the top of your tags or down the side of a page, because you can just take them and run them down the side of a page like this. So yeah, my daughter's making some of those. She wants to earn some money for gas since nobody will hire 16-year-olds anymore for jobs, it seems, around here anyway. I don't know about where everybody else is, but so, and we can make them any color you want. So if you want one like this or other colors or whatever, just let us know and we'll do that. We just wanted to make a couple so you could see what they, you know, look like. So that's that. And I'll put a link to my Etsy shop. And I'm just going to punch a hole so that, or not a hole, but a thumb spot in this. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. Alright, so that we'll decorate that tag and it'll have the fringe on it to hang out the side, and then when you slip it into the file folder, it'll be all ready to go. So I hope you guys have an awesome day and we will see you next time. Thanks, bye-bye.